Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Box, again with Dr. Ronald G. Taylor, sponsored by Novo Dia. And also want to just really say thank you for all the support and feedback that you've given us around these conversations. We try to keep them as authentic as possible. I'm a retired superintendent with about 30 years of public education experience that includes being a teacher, assistant principal, assistant superintendent, and also superintendent. And for those who are interested in reading some great stories about careers that are interesting and about the fight for instructional and educational integrity and equity, you can also feel free to look for my book. It's The Courage to Lead with Integrity for Equity, an authentic educational equity journey that's available everywhere. There's also, of course, a link on my LinkedIn. Hello, and welcome back to Beyond the Box. We're so excited today to have Dr. Christopher Sanzeri. He serves as an Assistant Director of Supervised Student Services for Curriculum and Instruction at Elgin Area School District U46. In this role, he oversees curriculum, design, instructional coherence, and implementation strategies for special education programs across the district. He is actively involved in leading the Multi-Abilities Classrooms (MAC) initiative, which aims to create consistent, aligned classroom structures and implements evidence-based curriculum practices across the district's special education programs, serving students with diverse learning needs from preschool through high school transition programs. So, why did we invite Chris to Beyond the Box? His work directly addresses the core challenge explored in Beyond the Box, moving from fragmented, supplement heavy curriculum models toward coherent, intentional instructional systems. Welcome, Chris. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And so, just to give you a couple of softballs to help our viewers learn, and we're looking at U46. And so, when you first stepped into your role, how were special education curriculum materials selected and shared and monitored across U46 different networks and school levels?
Yeah, when I first came into the district, all of our curriculum first began with building out the frameworks, and we used backward design as our framework template, and curriculum teams would write the entire curriculum with a framework, and then from that point, we would do exactly what you're saying. We would find then supplemental materials to piece in and use in there. But since that time, just before the pandemic, and that's how we've done things, the way it was explained to me for 20 years. And then we had this shift where now we are looking at, we've shifted from that into what we're doing now is we are selecting and identifying curricular resources first, and then we are building our frameworks. So we select that, and then we build out our curriculum frameworks and align that. So it's really that it's shifted from what we're building, what we think our frameworks and what our students need to know first, and then trying to piece it together with materials to here's the box set. Now, how do we make this work for us? And the two curriculums that we've implemented since this time of this kind of shift have been huge success for not only our general education students, but our specialized populations as well. In particular, with our rollout of elementary Open SciEd for our elementary science curriculum, thematic units and the routine of the storytelling, and it benefits our students, like the benefits of having that coherence with the students, and then even with our staff as well.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I often tell our audience some of the stories that I had personally in my professional past and how they connect to the stories that you're telling. And I just remember, as you say, we've done it this way for 20 years, right? That's the air quotes that all of us educators know about, which doesn't always mean we have a reason why we do it this way. This is the way we have done it, right? And so some of the challenges to thinking beyond the box is having the courage to be able to say, hey, there may be a different way. There may be a way that we can service our kids better, and it's worth investigating and investing in. So kudos and congratulations on that. And I'm really interested in the MAC, in the multi abilities classroom program. So how did MAC come about? Tell us more about it.
Oh, well, comes about interesting in current like this year, and we have an exceptional needs program, and there's two levels of that. So those are that's designed for our students moderate to like severe and profound intellectual disabilities, and then we have a modified learning program, which is our longest running of all these different programs. In acronyms that I'm going to go through. The alphabet soup and special education is always rich. So the MLP then has been around 2009 was when that one began. And that is for like our mild to moderate intellectual disabilities. And then since about 2015, 16, we've had individualized learning program. And that's our ILP program. And that's that was at the time, predominantly pitched as, like a program for students with autism spectrum disorder or those like characteristics. So we have these three different programs, and as part of my work when I came in through the past, we're in our 3 years now, we've been partnering with the Easter Seals and their Illinois autism partnership, and we've been having coaching. And part of that coaching began with just within the ILP program, but we saw so much benefits to their structured classroom, to their routines, the visuals, that we then next year we rolled it out to the MLP and EN classroom. And further, all three of these different programs are designed for alternate standards, alternate curriculum, and they all use the same unique learning systems curriculum within all three of these. So as we've had now in our third year of this coaching support and aligning the curriculum, we've known for a number of years that there's really not that much of a difference between these programs. But being a large school district, over 55 schools, and we have students where if you would need to go into an MLP classroom, what may not be available in your area. So then it was taken, you take a bus ride, an hour plus could be to get to your program. So we've had this, myself and the other special education leaders, we've had this idea. We've known we've wanted this, and the catalyst for getting this started then is our district has undergone a huge remapping of boundaries. We are sixth grade is moving up into middle school for the first time in the district. So we had this huge opportunity, and for the first time in my experience, it had a complete blank slate, and the planners within the district said to us, "Where do you want your special education classes to go?" We got to pick them first. So we did that, ensuring that we had them spaced around the district, and looking at where our students, what populations, what neighborhoods are they coming from, and can we add more to that? And then so often it's I'm calling up principals. Do you have space for a classroom? Do you have space for that was my previous 5 years with the district. Do you have space? Can we get a class in there? Like the dedication that our district took and our school board took to make that happen is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I've never heard of, and no one else has ever shared that that's ever been their experience as well. So with those changes, and we knew that sixth grade was coming up, the boundaries are coming, we're placed in our classrooms, we're like, now's the time to change the program model into the MAC classroom. So that will be rolling out into this upcoming school year, the 26-27 school year. And we are so excited for it. We've kicked off in October, we kicked off kind of like the knowledge, the foundation, like what is the program, and we've built in that. And then the learning starts now for that, and that continues through the summer, into the fall, into next school year. We've got a learning plan, personalized pathways for all our different roles, of required and optional and encouraged learning for them, all the way through November. We've got it mapped out for them. We're in a moment right now to where we feel like we've taken that step then from planning and designing, and now we're in that implementation stage with it, and the whole team is excited about it.
Oh man, congratulations. Congratulations. That is just phenomenal. I was a principal in the DC public schools in Washington, DC, again, probably a million years ago now, but I remember having a hub of special services in my building, right? And there was no discussion about it. There
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a request for it or an approval. I inherited it. And I remember learning about those decisions that were made and just how complicated they are. So congratulations to you and your district and your board for being so thoughtful. That's just phenomenal. And I've also in my career had the opportunity to do the redistricting and shift grade spans. For us it was called the Princeton model, where you could choose to have uh, spans of grades in I guess non-traditional ways in buildings. So having a first through three building or three through four building, and just all those infinite possibilities, and just trying to really again to be thoughtful and look at the research. And I know it's an exciting time for you and for everyone. So that's just phenomenal. I can't wait to read more about it. Awesome. And so
Thank you.
just to shift a little bit about curricula and centralized curricula versus teacher autonomy. And that's always a push and pull for all of us who've been school leaders. And so I know you're moving towards greater curriculum coherence. When you talk to teachers, if you have a chance to engage with teachers or the representation, are they worrying about losing autonomy? How do you address those kind of concerns when you have a lot of innovation happening, but you're trying to create coherence as well?
I have that unique lens where that within the district we have those individualized plans, the individualized education plans for the students. So I always approach it first from that angle and see then where is the opportunity for for that teacher autonomy to be had within the curriculum, but to be responsive to what the plan is laid out for the student, right? I want our teachers to be making data informed decisions. So when they have a rationale for doing something the way they're doing it, to adjust the pacing, like there's a purpose to it. Where I push back is when we aren't finding ways to access the general education curriculum, the general education standards, when we're just constantly presenting those meeting the students where they're at. As in some of our self-contained cross-categorical classes, my students, they don't know single digit multiplication. And I'm supposed to be teaching them the quadratic equation. And how can I ever teach that to them if they don't understand it? And like my first statement is, if we don't ever expose them to it, then you're never going to give them the opportunity to learn it, right? So we have to be sharing, we have to be creating those opportunities. But then I even work then with the teams where can we embed that work within the gen ed standard, with the gen ed curriculum? How can we find opportunities to do single digit multiplication within while we're teaching this? So it gets met there, and I don't think there's any teacher that feels that they're purposefully lowering the expectations for their students. I don't think they come from a place of my child can't, my students can't do this. Looking at where they're at, and they're trying to get them caught up, or try to meet them. It's a continual balance we try to find with that. What we have gotten to a lot of pushback recently is with our common assessments. So 2 years ago, we've updated our grading practices, and we've simplified it into, you get instructional practice. You can think of that as homework grades, quick classwork. Then we give grades for our formative assessments, which could look anything. Really, we open that up and give the teachers the autonomy, what a formative assessment looks like. And that could be an exit slip at the end of a math lesson. It could be a rubric that teachers walking around and using as they're looking at student discussions. And then we have summative grades. So then those summative grades are all district common assessments that we've pushed out. And our district leadership has taken the time to align those assessments to be rigorous, intensive, and aligned with our universal screeners, aligned with our statewide assessments. So we're preparing students to excel at what our state has said that we need to have as a baseline for education. It was initially met with a lot of resistance from our special educators because they're like, well, we need to modify this. We need to, and I really took a position of, okay, how can we accommodate this? Let's have a conversation on what's an accommodation and what's a modification. Because what I found was that a lot of accommodations that were written into IEPs, but then teachers were applying in practice, were really modifications. They were removing whole questions, not touching standards within assessments. So we tightened around their opportunity to be flexible with those assessments. And by and large, like, our teachers came around to it. They clarified and they were more intentional and used data to determine like what accommodations a student needs, what modifications may be needed. Our district the district leadership has been receptive to that because they understand now we're not applying that. Because further on, the other complication we had that we found out as we were pushing out these common assessments was that if you were in a classroom and we were just providing whole accommodations or whole modifications to the entire classroom, and then you're losing the individualized part of the plan at that point. So if we're reading aloud to every single student in the class, yes, probably in some grades, in our early elementary grades, that's helpful. But in a high school classroom, for an ELA test, is that what's most beneficial for every single student in there, or maybe one student that really would benefit from that? So we stopped whole class accommodations, whole class modifications, and that has been received really well. And then now, fast forward to where we're at presently with it, is switched over. We started using Formula from News ELA. The work that our curriculum coordinators were doing, modifying a few assessments that students genuinely needed by hand last year. Now we got artificial intelligence built right into formative that makes it a matter of seconds. I was just working with our English curriculum coordinator last week, and she had a teacher that said that I emailed her, my student has these accommodations in his IEP. Can you make me an alternate assessment for him? And she's like, Chris, how do I do that? I'm like, well, let's just see what I looked at. We pulled up his IEP, and there was like a reduced vocabulary, and it was a miss because it was vague enough, because it doesn't describe like where are we presenting this vocabulary at. I could infer based on some of the present levels, but I would really love to see reduced vocabulary to X grade level. So that's like a follow-up for IEP teams. But then within that, I find, well, students in 8th grade, and he's looking at, and the present levels are saying about 4th grade reading level. I go, well, we want to also push our students a little bit. So let's just say, like, what is a 5th grade reading level? So all I did was type in the box. I go, change the questions and the responses in this assessment to a 5th grade vocabulary at a 5th grade level. It did it. It changed it. We were done. We pushed the test out. Like, it was that quick. So saving so much time to provide that. And now we have that assessment archived forever. And that assessment then could benefit some of our students at like ESL level 1s and 2s, because we've got some that reduced vocabulary, and it's there.
Awesome. That is a great example. For folks who are not in ed leadership yet, and maybe have not been a part of IEP compliance and much less the development of IEPs, and depending on where you are in the country, the triannual obligations that can happen, and maybe kids who are from my experience, the highest level, most rigorous courses, our AP courses, also had kids in there who had IEPs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And twice exceptional students was the term that was used often. And I just love that. Although it's going to be uncomfortable sometimes when we're doing things that are innovative, when we have folks who have a different perspective because of their day-to-day operations in classrooms, and we can put our minds together and our efforts together, and we're all working on behalf of kids. Those times may be frustrating. Sometimes those conversations can be a little frustrating, um, from both sides, right? Because you have a hardworking teacher who really wants what's best for their kids. And I love the story about reading to the entire class, because a few or maybe the half of the IEPs call for that, but maybe not all, right? And so if you're using one student's IEP, or three or four students' IEPs to drive instruction that's impacting the entire class, that's the practice that we look at and say maybe that's not the best way, right? Because we are serving kids, but we want to make sure that it's individualized as much as it can be for those students. And I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. And you also used one of my favorite words. I wrote a book about educational equity, and so whenever I hear leaders voluntarily go into that realm of trying to make sure that we're being equitable in the work that we're doing, and shifting over to the latest AI tools to try and make that happen, that's phenomenal. Thank you for that. So listen, our last question here. Um, Mac sounds so exciting, and I know that you mentioned we kind of rolling it out very soon, and I'm sure there's some anxiety there with that. Have you given thought, you and your team, about the ways that you're going to monitor the implementation, ways you're going to be able to share with the board and the other folks who are attached to this, kind of the accountability pieces to make sure that you're meeting your standard or meeting your goals in there? Have you given any thought to that yet?
What we've done, and then another great initiative that we've done in the district that I was a part of all of last year, and our board approved it, was we updated our strategic plan for the next, from now until was ratified at the May of last school year, and then through 2030. It's weird to say 2030, but 2030 now. We've got a new district strategic plan, and there's within those, we've got our goal number one is getting our pre-K and early elementary students to at grade level for reading and math and SEL, and then we go to two is our second goal, is that safety, sense of belonging and inclusion. Then our third one is that academic rigor and excellence and success. And then four is our post-secondary, kind of the end cap of that. So they flow 1, 2, 3, 4 from the beginning through the end, but accessing college and career readiness pathways. And what we've been tasked as is the entire district, all of our program implementations, all of our initiatives district-wide must stack up to the district strategic plan's metrics of success that we've identified within there. So as we look at that, we've got metrics for students within the MAC classroom. In particular, we're looking at metrics of increasing their levels of proficiency and growth in the dynamic learning maps alternate assessment. We're looking at their students within the program, their common assessments that they take, their pre-test, post-test scores, and their checkpoints, their benchmarking scores throughout the school year that's embedded within the curriculum. So we want to see some growth, what that's happening in there. But it's not even growth within some of the metrics. Growth is half of it, and then success is like the other step within the goal. So each metric really addresses growth and the success. So that lays like the foundation for how we're going to be measuring in the program success. And then but then from that, then we look at the opportunities then to adding teacher voice into that. So there's so much within the program that we're interested in, than just the numbers, right? How is this working day to day? These are some of the concerns that have already been shared with us. Some of the anxiety and the worries about the programs that we've heard from small group of teachers and small group of parents. How can we monitor that? How can we follow up with those teachers and hear from them? And then with that, and then taking the opportunity then for the students, and what is their experience like? How can we collect their voice into how the program is working? What should we be seeing when we have that? One of the measures of that we looked at is just that increased access to the general education their general education peers. We envision through this increased socialization, increased inclusion supports through the MAC classrooms, that we should see more students having more pro-social behaviors than what we're currently seeing. So the opportunity is just so rich to look to. We have these baseline measures that we're going to be monitoring the program, but we can drill it down to that student level and collect their voice and the changes that they're seeing there. So I'm excited to be able to, when we have this out next year, what is this? Talk to the students. How's this working for you? Have you made some new friends now that you're in this new class? Now that you're in your community instead of going across a couple towns over, you're here? Do you have some friends in the building with you now? Like, that will be a huge measure of success if we're doing that for these students.
I love that. And I every time that I have a brilliant guest on like yourself, you always say something that I haven't heard before that I'm going to steal. And I love the description of pro-social behavior. That I love that. That's like, um, we're going to increase pro-social behavior, and I also understand um, the things that can be immeasurable, right? Making a kid not have to have an hour bus ride, right? Maybe they can walk to school with friends that they've had their entire life. Those things can sometimes be immeasurable until you give the student voice and choice a chance to be recorded to kind of review a year from now, when you're in almost February of 2027, being able to reflect and get those students to share with you how this year is different from previous years. Or even though, listen, change comes with anxiety for any and everybody who's involved. So that's understandable for teachers and parents to have anxiety. Um, that's a great tool of reflection for us to also see how thoughtful we need to be in our communication. So again, I'm super excited, and I can't wait to read more about the outcome. And congratulations again on being part of such an innovative space and time for your school district. And we really thank you for joining us on Beyond the Box. And for everyone who's watching, make sure that you follow up on U46 and keep an eye on the MAC program, and maybe it can become an example for other places. So thank you, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor, for having me. This was excellent. Thank you so much.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And everyone have a great time. Take care.